What's going on, guys? Welcome to TGC Radio episode 20, where today we will be taking a look at my most listened to music from April 5th, 2024, all the way through April 11th, 2024. And let's jump straight into it like always with artists. You know what it is. You know the format of this show by now. Unless you're new, and if for some reason you're watching this and you're new, welcome. Please watch the other episodes, but enjoy this one first. But anyway, my top artist of the week was 3 Days Grace, followed by My Chemical Romance, and then we have Cassidy McKenzie and the White Stripes, and then we have Against the Current and Rush. My most listened to album of the week was The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance, and then we have Explosions and Outsider, both by 3 Days Grace, then we have Elephant by the White Stripes, and we have Permanent Waves by Rush. And there's no songs worth mentioning, but I do have a segue later in the video for that. We will talk about songs, just not most listened to specifically. But yeah, so first, let's start off with 3 Days Grace since they're the most played artist of the week. And I've talked about them before quite a bit on the other channel, not so much here yet on the TGC Radio channel. 3 Days Grace, they used to be my favorite band. They were one of the first bands that I got into because I liked them at the time. And I had known them for a long time, most of my life even. I knew Self-Titled and 1X, as I've said so many times before. I knew those really well, but then I just kind of forgot the band existed. And then when I started high school, I rediscovered them, got super into them. Then my best friend also was introduced to them for the first time, and then we bonded even more, etc. We'll talk about that later. But, so yeah, and then after that, I got super into them, listened to everything, and my best friend Tyson and I, we actually recorded a 3 Days Grace related video talking about a lot of their individual songs and comparing them to one another, and yeah, that video will come out pretty soon, I think. Either way, so we did that, and I just started thinking about, it's been quite a while since I've listened to 4 of their 7 records now, more than 5 years at that point. It's and I know I don't really like the band that much anymore. I don't really care for them at all anymore, outside of a handful of songs. But I was very interested in going back and listening to those 4 records specifically that I had listened to, but not in such a long time. And then I said, well, if I'm doing that, I just also re-listened to my 2 favorite records from the band last year at the time of recording, and so then I might as well also listen to their newest release that I only at the time listened to half of before turning it off. It's okay, I don't like this record at all. So I did that. I listened to those 4 records I hadn't listened to in 5 years, and then finished the most recent record, finally. And I have a lot of thoughts that I will talk about in the album roundup for April, but I also want to talk about them more, because knowing my history with the band, it feels like something I should do in a separate video, not just attached to the album roundup video. I don't know, that'll come out soon, sometime, I don't know. Regardless, though, yeah. So I finally did that, and Explosions and Outsider both were considered for this week, while the other 3 were the previous week. So yeah, that's why they're there. And I'll talk about those more in a minute. But, as well as that, you know what? Screw it. We're talking about them now. We'll keep talking about them. Yeah, so, before I move on to My Chem, 3 Days Grace, to finish up, Outsider, I remember when I first listened to it, when it came out in 2018, which is also, coincidentally, the last time I really listened to the record ever in full. I remember thinking that it was a solid record. I thought it was better than Human by a lot, but it was also still weaker than everything they had done with Adam, their previous frontman. And I still kind of feel that way. Tyson and I did an album ranking on the main channel last year that you can check out. Link in the description if I remember. And I wouldn't change how I rank them, so I would still consider all of the Matt era of the band to be the weakest material. But even then, I don't like Adam stuff that much anymore either. I have a lot of issues with that as well. But yeah. But Outsider, generally, I still thought it was solid. And I do still have an appreciation for it. I think there are good songs on it. And there are even some stuff that I disliked originally that I thought was at the very least okay. And we'll get into that more later when I talk about songs individually. And then Explosions, I still didn't like that first half of the record when I revisited it recently. I thought as the record went on, it was fine. So my issue is, right, I think for me, Explosions, unfortunately for it as a record, I think Explosions to me is just like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think I'm just done. Like, I think I've had enough of 3 Days Grace, you know? I think I'm just done with them. And I think I'm done with them as a band in general. I think I've just kind of had enough of them with Matt in the band as well. And it's not even entirely just him or, like, his fault or anything. It's not. Like I said, in general, I think I've just had enough of the band. And Explosions, Poor Little Explosions as a record, I think, again, was just the straw that broke the camel's back there. You know? So yeah. Because, like, at the end of the day, Explosions is... It's the most 3 Days Grace record to ever 3 Days Grace. It's very stereotypical 3 Days Grace, especially with Matt in the band. And if you like that era of the band, you probably will like Explosions just fine. But yeah, like I said, I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I think I've just had enough, and I just don't like anything on it. I think there's a very small handful of songs on it that are okay at best. And I think there's one that I kind of like. And even then I don't like it. I wouldn't come back to it. It's just... The one song, Lifetime, I think, at least shows that it's a song with some heart, you know? And yeah. But even then I still don't really like it. And I'll talk about more in depth later. You know the drill. But yeah, so those are kind of like quick thoughts on both of those. My Chem, a band I do listen to more frequently, a band I like a lot, and a band I have a lot more appreciation and respect for now, of course. And they're there because I was sitting down with the Black Parade in full. I started that yesterday at the time of recording and finished it today at the time of recording. I didn't need to say that twice, but I did anyway. And yeah, to be honest, I don't know if I have listened to the Black Parade in full. Like, I know my sister used to own it physically, and she played it all the time, and there's a lot of stuff on there that I remember, but there's some stuff that I don't, and I don't know if that's just, like, a faulty memory, like, I just don't remember it, or if some of those songs I just didn't listen to. I don't know. But regardless, Black Parade is, of course, fantastic. It's arguably a perfect record, I think. It's got... Like, every song is great. I like that the story is strong and very noticeable and coherent throughout the entire record, you know? Because as much as I love American Idiot, and I also think American Idiot is a perfect record, the thing with that is, the story of American Idiot, some songs, it's very clear what it is, and it's there. Other songs, it's kind of subdued, subtle, and you can tell that some of it is just kind of vague. Like, they had an overall outline of an idea, but they didn't have the full scope of what they wanted. And they ended up making it work, and again, I think American Idiot is a perfect record. But, at the same time, I do like, on the other side of that Black Parade, you could tell that the band, and maybe even Gerard specifically, had a very clear idea of, like, the whole scope that he wanted, and, like, the band helped him put that together, and that's exactly what they did, you know? And even if I don't think even if I don't think the Black Parade is quite as strong as Three Cheers, I think they're both perfect records. And it's clear that, like, a lot of Three Cheers was kind of like the blueprint for the Black Parade, if you know what I mean. And, like, there are some, like, for example, without songs like Helena and Ghost of You on Three Cheers, you wouldn't have the Black Parade. And I think as a whole, you would, if without Three Cheers, you would not have Black Parade. And yeah, I think both are very strong. I think I prefer Three Cheers just a little bit more. But I do love the Black Parade. And it's funny, one of my biggest takeaways early on was, I do want to mention this on camera, is, so I love the song Welcome to the Black Parade, obviously. I mean, it's great, and it's basically considered the emo national anthem. And it should be, even though technically it's not emo. And technically My Chem aren't emo, they've never been emo. And, like, the band also hates the term emo. So, like, yeah. And that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. And they're only considered emo because emo kids listen to them. But, like, if everything emo kids listen to was emo, then there's a lot of stuff that is considered emo, but that isn't. And yeah, that's a whole different conversation that we won't get into. And that's a tangent as well. Anyway, yeah. Regardless, I like the song The Black Parade, Welcome to the Black Parade, a lot. But one of my biggest takeaways for that song was, sometimes I don't want the intro, sometimes I don't want the piano at the beginning. Sometimes I just want to, like, kick into high gear with, like, the fast, punky type beat as soon as, like, that ends and, like, Gerard's done screaming. Sometimes I just want, like, the fast, like, the entire band comes in, kind of like, again, punky banger. But the intro, of course, works so fucking well when in context of the entire record up to that point. And I think that's really cool because, like, before you get the intro of the Black Parade, you don't really have any, like, let up. Like, they don't let up at all, really. It's like, go, 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 go the entire time. And then finally, you get the intro with the piano. It's iconic. And we have some room to breathe. They're allowing things to cool down, calm down. And it's a great, almost change of pace for the record at the time. And then they kind of mix the two worlds together perfectly throughout the rest of the record. So yeah, like, when in context of the whole record, it works so fucking well, and I have an even bigger appreciation for it than I already did. And I wanted to mention that. Another record from my childhood, Elephant by the White Stripes, though, and that's one where, like, I don't know. It was the same day that I listened to Explosions. I was at work, and I listened to Explosions on my lunch break, and I don't know, just out of the blue, I clocked out of work, and I was just like, I want to listen to Elephant by the White Stripes. So I started listening to that, and I listened to about the first half of it. And wow, God, I love the White Stripes. I love that record. It's so nostalgic for me. And again, like, every song I remembered basically from my childhood. It kind of like what I was talking about with listening to Shining Down to the Sound of Madness and, like, The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. Songs from my childhood, or albums from my childhood. Like, as soon as I started listening to a lot of these songs again, it's like it just transported me back to being a kid, you know? And that's what Elephant did as well. And yeah, love the first half of it so far. Really like the garage rock style that they had. I like that it's also, you know, both Jack and Meg singing as well. Like, Meg has her own songs where she leads the vocals, and that's great. So that was a lot of fun, and I'll get back to that sometime in the month. Hopefully, I should do that. Cassidy McKenzie, of course, I talked about last week, released another new song, When I Was You, that hit me in the goddamn feels. Still love that song, been listening to that a lot. And that was really cool. And I also went back and started listening to the song she released a couple years ago, Leave Me Alone. And that song is still so good as well. Oh, yeah, I love that. Anyway, so yeah, I've just been listening to a lot of her stuff, especially, again, like Leave Me Alone specifically, or Leave Me Alone I revisited again, and then all of like her newer releases for this year as well. I've been coming back to. Against the Current are basically always there, as you guys know if you're familiar with the series, and Rush has basically been there since the start of the year as well. And Permanent Waves, this week, I will be honest, it's very specifically only Spirit of Radio and Free Will. I have not been coming back to the rest of the record, but the rest of the record is very good, very solid. Check it out. Very strong Rush record, and I just love those first two songs so much. Like, they're some of Rush's best, all-time best. But that is really all that I have to talk about for artists and albums. Like I said, there's no songs worth mentioning for most listened to of the week. So with that being said, I will give you my top 6 songs of the week, like my fave songs of the week. Well, really my fave 5 songs of the week that I really wanted to mention here. And the 6th one is one that I don't like, but I feel like it's worth talking about, so we'll get into that last. The first song I wanted to mention, of course, was Leave Me Alone by Cassidy McKenzie, which I did already talk about a little bit. And yeah, just, again, listening to When I Was You and Turn It Down and Somehow, just her newer releases for this year, I just started thinking about Leave Me Alone again, revisit it, and it's still so good. It's a straight up bop, and I love it so much. And yeah, so those songs remind me of that. Next up, I want to mention 3 Days Grace's song, Lost in You, from their third record, Life Starts Now, and it's my favorite song by the band. I do still love this song so much. Again, it kind of like with Cassidy's When I Was You, actually. Lost in You, for whatever reason, has just always hit me right in the feels so much every single time, and I love it. I love that song so much. It's my favorite song by the band, like I already said, and when I was revisiting all of those 3 Days Grace records here at the start of April, when I got the Life Starts Now and I got to that song, it like immediately, it once again, it hit me. It hit me again. No matter how many times I listened to it, it hit me again, and it's like, that's my favorite song. That's, I think, one of their best. No one's going to agree with that, but I think it's one of their best. It still holds up. It's great. And yeah, I knew that I wanted to mention it here when I decided to do this section. As well as that, I want to mention Against the Current song Lullaby from their Fever EP. And that's because I listened to both Burn It Down and Fever. And I love Burn It Down. It's actually my favorite song on the EP. But I listened to Lullaby, singing along, having a good time. I love that song so much. Chrissy's vocals on it are great. I mean, Chrissy's vocals are always great, but they're really great here. As well as the guys playing as well. The rest of the guys are doing great too. But yeah, no, I love Lullaby. And once I got done, I knew it had to be here when I decided, again, to do this fave song instead of most listened to for this video. I knew once I decided that I wanted Lullaby there, because as soon as the song ended, I just had to say to myself, like, God, that's such a good record. And yeah, Fever's great. Check it out. Even if, like, say you couldn't get into anything from Against the Current previously, if you know who the band are and you try to get into them and you couldn't, check out Fever if you have not. Check out Fever if you have not. End of sentence. As well as that, there is Let's Get Fucked Up and Die by Motion City Soundtrack, which I want to mention because I just started thinking about this song again. I was also thinking about this song quite a bit at the end of the previous year. Sometimes I just start really thinking about this song, and enough said. Next up is the song Resistance to Resilience by the band Reluctant Hero, and I guarantee everyone listening to this probably does not know what that song is, and it's just a super nostalgic song for. It's just a super nostalgic song for me. I love it so much. It was a song that was actually featured in the game WWE 12, and I love it. Like I said, generally, I think it's just a great song in general, and its inclusion in the game, just, it worked so well. It fit the character that they had assigned that song to be, like, that character's theme song. It fits so well. It perfectly describes what they wanted. Like, it perfectly shows you what they wanted that character to be and to portray. And yeah, I just started thinking about that song, and then I saw, oh hey, it's on Spotify, which I swear to God, I looked it up on Spotify before, and it wouldn't let me play it. So, yeah. But I found it there and listened to it. It's like, yes, I still love this song. So again, I wanted to mention it here. And finally, the one song that I mentioned that I did not previously, or that I still don't like, but I think it's worth mentioning, is the song Me Against You by 3 Days Grace from the record Outsider. Now, the reason it's worth mentioning is because when I first listened to Outsider, all the way up until I re-listened to it just recently, I hated this song. I considered it the worst song that the band had ever written. I just fucking hated it, to be very blunt. And I don't know what it is. When re-listening to it recently, something just kind of hit me. And again, while I still don't like it, I think it's one of the weakest songs on the record. I don't hate it, and I don't even think it's the worst song they've ever written. I don't even think it's the worst song on that record now. I thought it was just kind of fine. Like, overall, I think it's still weak, like I already said, and I think the concept of it entirely is done better in other songs, but yeah, it was one where, like, again, even if I don't particularly like it, it's basically completely turned my opinion around on it. Like, I don't like it, but I don't hate it anywhere near as much as I used to. And again, I felt like it was worth mentioning. So that is not a part of, like, the fave songs of the week, because again, like I said, I don't like it. But again, I felt like it was worth mentioning, so that's why it's here. But nonetheless, this is actually, once again, going to be a fairly longer episode of TGC Radio Weekly. Damn. Okay. Anyway, I'm happy with that, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below, share both social media, do all that good stuff, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys!